Alright, this is Shane with the Whoolie Shop, and today we're going to be talking about building an audio tube. We've got tons of different kind of tubes. There's split tubes where they've got 4 speakers. As you can see, this one's in process. There's single tubes that just have 2 speakers. There's tri-tubes that have 3 speakers. There's a lot of different variations of audio tubes and ways you can build them. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to take you from start to finish with a tri-tube, which will have 3 speakers in it, amplifier and everything. This is kind of what we've got here to work with. We've got a 90-degree street L. This has a bell on one end and an insert, just a single end of the pipe which will slide into another coupling. If you'll bear with me just a second, I'm going to put this camera on the tripod and then we'll get started. Alright, to get started with this tri-tube, we've got 3 main sections here. We have this is what they call a street L. It is a regular standard bell on this end and a straight coupling on this side, which will slide into another coupling. So you could take this and slide it into a T, or you could slide it into another 90 to make a U shape. But typically if you use a U-shaped tube, you would have a bell on both ends. For the sake of this demonstration, we're going to have 2 90s and a T. What we've got here, we've got our other 90, which will go in to the T, and slide these out of the way. We have a T fitting. This T fitting has a bell on each end, one over here, one over here, and one on the front. We're going to have one speaker that mounts here. We're going to have a 90 that goes on this side. And a 90 that goes in this side. What we'll end up with is something that looks like this when it's all said and done. Be a little more compact when all the fittings are pushed together and glued up, but we don't want to stick them all the way together right now just because they'll be kind of a pain in the butt to get apart. One other thing we have here is about 1.5 inch speaker ring. This is just basically Schedule 40 PVC pipe. It will go in each one of these holes and we'll glue it in place, and what this will do is give our screws for our speakers a place to land. We'll use primer and glue everything together, and then we'll get started from there. Alright, so what we're going to do, I'm going to start by priming all these pieces. Just regular old PVC primer that you can get at any plumbing store, Home Depot, Lowe's, that kind of thing. Every joint that you put together, you want to make sure you prime it and put cement on it just to make sure it adheres properly. We're going to go around the inside here. If you're used to doing any kind of plumbing, you may plumb the entire inside of this, but we're only going to go in here about 1.5 inches or so with this PVC ring, so there's really no sense in wasting any of this stuff, cement or primer. Just kind of paint that stuff on, go all the way around, and you're going to repeat this for every joint you got to make. When you get to the T, you're going to make sure you prime all of it because you're going to have to slide the street L deep into that. And so prime it all the way back because this piece of pipe that goes in here is going to go all the way back to the back. This center one again, just the first 1.5 inches or so of it. Just enough to clear that ring. Part that slides in, we're going to prime it as well. This particular tube is going to be set. A lot of them we do different configurations. Some of them are all flat all the way across. Every once in a while I get someone that wants the center speaker pointed up at them while they're riding. Alright, this is going to be a triple tube. Now you can see I got these laid out. The center tube is going to actually be turned up on a 45-degree angle. I've just got a square under there, setting that up at a 45. So when I glue these things, everything will stay where it's supposed to be. And I'll turn these down. The ones in the front here will be turned forward, and the one in the center will be turned up at the rider. So I'm going to set this camera back down here, and I'm going to glue these up, and I'll just kind of walk you through how to do that. Use PVC cement. Slide that out of the way for now. What you want to do is go around the inside of the joint here. Outside the joint there, when you slide them together, you got to work really quick, so be ready to glue it whenever it's up. Slide these in, you want to try and give it at least a quarter turn. And once that's in there, I've got it turned up here at an angle. Alright, I've got this one glued in, and you see the primer here where I slid it in, turned it down. I've got this one turned up so we'll get the rider. Do the other side now, and then we can clean it up and paint it. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to put our speaker rings in each one of these holes. These are a little easier to do, a lot more forgiving on these. Go around the inside of the fitting. Go around your speaker ring here. And these just need to be kind of flush. Like I said, we're just giving the speaker a place to land. So you slide them in and then just rotate them, and they will eventually stop as that cement sets up. Alright, make sure you go ahead and cap your glue and your primer back up, because this glue will set up in the can. Then it's useless. Get that out of the way, and now grab my camera here. You can see there's a lot of stickers and stuff on here. You want to get all that stuff off, clean your pipe up. This is just the way it came from Lowe's, dirty. That here, and I'm going to go ahead and clean the tube up, and then I'm going to take it out to the rack, hang it up, and where we can spray it. Alright, our tube's back from being rhino lined. It's ready to go as far as that's concerned, and I was going to talk a few minutes about some of the parts that's going to go into this tube. First thing, nothing special here. These are plywood half moon shapes. They are cut so they will fit right in the PVC very snug and give our amp somewhere to sit, so it won't be rocking around, it won't be hard to secure. Moving right along, our amplifier is next. We use a part from Clarion. It's a 4-channel amp. It's very small. It'll fit in any size, any 6-inch tube. We've got a wiring harness that goes with that, so if it did need to come out for a reason, it could be unplugged easily. The next thing is this is our input. This is a piece by Clarion. It's an aux input. It takes a 3.5 millimeter jack. A pair of RCA's on the other end. Plug right into the amplifier, and it's threaded. It's got a rubber grommet here. If you unscrew this, you can see there's a rubber grommet there. Once this is in there, we'll seal it up. No chance of water or anything leaking through there. Next part we've got is Bluetooth adapter. This is not for every single tube we do, but a lot of them get it. It basically allows you to use your smartphone or any Bluetooth enabled device that has music on it to stream it straight to your tube wirelessly. This is the power adapter we use for our premium budget tubes. It's good for up to 10 amps. You want to make sure you don't exceed 10 amps. Your amp's not going to draw more than 10 amps because most of your factory accessory circuits will not allow you to do that. They have a 10 amp fuse in them, they'll blow anyway. So if you're using an amplifier that's got more than a 10 amp fuse in it, you want to make sure that you wire that direct to the battery. This thing's got an on-off switch with a light, lets you know the tube's on. When it's on, the light turns green, you know your tube's powered up, Bluetooth's working if so installed. And basically this comes with just two ends that are pre-soldered, terminated. What we'll do is we'll cut that to length and we'll hook that directly to our amp. Next thing we need just for this tube is a pair of RCA splitters. These are one male, two female. What this will do is let us plug in our Bluetooth adapter as well as our 3.5mm jack. We'll plug those in and it'll basically combine the two signals into one, so you can use either or. Can't use them both at the same time and get some crazy results. But alright, our first step is going to be to go ahead and drill a hole and mount our aux input adapter. Again, this is part by Clarion, and it's got RCA's on one end, 3.5mm jack on this other end with a nice rubber cover that goes over it. Keeps dirt, moisture, things like that out. Really depends. It's really your personal preference on where you put this. A lot of times I'll put them, kind of off at an angle towards the user, so it's easy to get in. If something brushes across the top, it doesn't take it out, doesn't knock out your MP3 cable that's plugged in. What this takes is a 3/4 inch hole. You can see I just got a bit here, 3/4 inch. 3/4 inch is just about perfect for this. We'll drill a hole in here, then we'll thread our RCA's in, put the nut on the back, and that will be in there good and secure. Don't have to worry about it falling out, coming loose. And again, the position of this is really up to you. You can put it higher, lower, whatever you want. Just make sure it's going to be out of the way when that rubber cover is on there. It's easy to get to. See, we're kind of close here. So I'm going to come right in the middle of this joint here. Alright, you can see we got our hole drilled here mostly. I've got to get this piece of plastic out of here. Alright. Now our hole's drilled, and you can see it took me just a minute to drill through there. We use Schedule 40 PVC in all these. It's a lot tougher than some of the sewer pipe you may see in some of the cheaper builds. Sewer pipe doesn't line up as good as far as the speakers are concerned. Even just using a single ring here won't give you enough to land a screw in. Schedule 40 does that. Schedule 40 is great for this. Just going to deburr that a little bit. I'm going to get my compressed air here and blow the table off. Alright, now we'll take the RCA ends of this, thread it through the hole all the way down to the end, and put the nut on the outside. You put this on, you got to squeeze both RCA jacks through this hole. It's a little tight, but once you do a couple of these, you get the hang of that. And once you get it up on there, just snug it down. Again, be mindful of your rubber seal that's around this. Make sure that it's not pinched. You don't want to tear it. And screw that down just good and hand tight. You want to mash that seal just a little bit, just to make sure it's completely sealed against the round tube. Once that's in there, you can flip it up and plug in your 3.5mm cable, your MP3 cable coming from your audio source, whether that be your iPod, iPhone, Droid phone, MP3 player. Alright, our next part of the project is going to be getting some power into this tube. We use this little rubber grommet. This is a NEMA grommet. It's actually a marine product. It's got, if you open this up, it's got some little fingers in here and a rubber seal. When you screw this down, and there's a wire in there, and you close it, you can see that hole gets much smaller and it closes around on it. This will make a seal here, preventing water intrusion. If you're using this in Schedule 40 pipe, these particular grommets come with a rubber seal in the back as well as a nut. Schedule 40 is so thick that you'll actually just have to screw this into the pipe, and I'll cover that here in a few minutes once I drill this hole. Alright, I'm going to install our grommet now. I'm going to use a 17/64 bit for this. Again, it's going to be just about the exact same size as our grommet here. We want it really tight, so when we force it in, we're basically going to thread it in, but we're doing plastic on plastic, so we want it to be really, really snug, so no chance of leaks. We're going to seal it from the inside out anyway, but again, the tighter it is, the easier your job will be. As far as placement on these grommets, typically I go for somewhere that's out of the way. When the wire's coming out, it's not going to get snagged. I'm going to go for a spot that's right here where the clarion part comes out, just for the simple fact of that way both our connections will be in the same area. We won't have wires running across the tube from one side to the other. And for this particular bike, the power accessory is on the left. So I'm just going to roll this up, and I'm going to put on the lower half of this is where I'm going to put this hole. Now we're going to clean our hole out. We're going to see if this is too tight or if it will fit just right in here. It's going to be just a little tight. So what I'm going to do is make this hole just a little bit bigger. To do that, I'm going to use a roto zip here. Now I could just step up to the next size drill bit, but if I drill too much, obviously it won't go in. There's not a perfect size for these grommets, so it takes a little playing with. You could use a sharp razor or something else to cut this out just big enough. But again, I've got a roto zip here, might as well use it. Alright, you can see my hole here. What I'm going to do is just basically go around this thing a couple times on a roto zip, just open it up a little bit until we get our grommet in there. Alright, you can see I've got my grommet in now, and again I'm going to seal this from the inside out, which takes a little finesse. You basically put some sealant on your hand, reach around the inside, smear it around just so it's covered, and once that's sealed up you don't have to worry about any water moisture getting in through there. And again, this will tighten down and squeeze down on that wire, creating a good watertight seal there. Alright, next thing we need to do is get this little rubber seal out of our grommet. And basically the easiest way to do that is reach around from the inside with something, screw head, something like that, just big enough to go inside there and push that out. Alright, you see, and then I pull that out, and notice it is tapered, so you want to make sure that you put it back in the way it came out. I'm going to go ahead and unwrap this. These things are way longer than you actually need. So remember, put your screw end in for your grommet on first, then the tapered part first over the wires. And if you're doing a split tube, we sell a little bit bigger grommet that's big enough for 2 wires. This one is just perfect for, you know, this pair. If you had another pair for like going to another tube, sending an audio signal, you'd obviously want the bigger grommet. I'm going to go with about 2.5 feet, 3 feet of, again, this is a personal preference, just long enough that's going to get up to your ATV's power source and, you know, give you plenty of slack so you can move this thing around. We'll run our wires down through the hole, and we'll go ahead and chase them out this center hole. And once you got that, you can slide this back, and we're basically, you just kind of use a rocking motion, a rotating motion, and you get all those, get the rubber seal down between all those fingers, and slip the screw end in over it, and just tighten it down a little bit. Once you get that tightened down, you don't have to worry about the wire pulling back out. Got a good seal there. I'm going to go ahead and lay this thing back down now. Ready for retaliation. Alright, next thing we need to do is go ahead and start working on hooking up our amplifier. Alright, the one we need for this is our power connector. We're going to wire our 10 amp accessory plug into this, as well as our Bluetooth adapter. We've got a red and a black wire on the Bluetooth adapter here. We've got a red and black here. These colors just match up. As far as this particular accessory adapter, if you get a different one, your results may vary, but you can see the positive wire is marked here, and that is the one without a stripe. There's a stripe on this wire, that's our negative. The wire without a stripe is going to be positive. So again, we'll just trim this back just enough to know if we need to pull it all out the whole center hole, we can. So I'm going to cut it back about here. Alright, got my wire cutters. Cut that off. Again, be mindful of which wire is which. You don't want to hook it up backwards. Do not cut yourself. Use a knife to do this. Alright, I got a couple more tools to talk about here. This is a pair of automatic wire strippers. You slide the wire in the side, you squeeze the handle, strips it back for you. Great investment if you do much wiring. Definitely something you should invest in. I've had these forever. You can see, just pulls off. I got plenty of wire to work with here. I'm going to solder these connections. You don't have to, but I'm a fan of soldering just because it is a very, very permanent connection. You don't have to worry about it ever vibrating loose if you can get it crimped tight enough. Crimp connectors are okay, but I just don't prefer them myself. Basically, we're going to wind these two together. If you don't know how to solder, you can go ahead and use crimp connectors, whatever you see, however you see fit. I do suggest soldering them. I would definitely pick up solder and learn how to solder. It's definitely a better way than using regular mechanic like crimp style connectors. Again, be mindful of the wires. The negative wire is the one with the stripe on it for this particular thing. I'm going to twist these together. And if you need a kind of a crash course on soldering, there is one on our website at Whoolie.com. Alright, once we've got those twisted together, I'm going to solder them up. Almost the next thing as important as soldering is having a decent soldering iron. This is a Weller, it's a soldering gun, not really an iron, but anyway, you hold the trigger down, it gets hot. This is a 2-stage trigger, so you pull it all the way. It's not as hot, which is kind of backwards in my opinion. Anyway, you want to make sure it gets hot. Put the soldering iron on the wire, heat the wire, not the solder, and then just slowly touch the solder here to the wire until it starts to melt on it. And once the wire is hot enough to take the solder, it will take it easily. And you just want to coat all this copper wire with the solder. Alright, we've got our wires soldered up now. Those are definitely not going to vibrate apart. They're not going to come undone. And what I'm going to do is spray these with an anti-corrosion spray and then tape them up. Alright, I've got my anti-corrosion spray, which is just a fancy way of saying battery terminal protector. I'm going to spray each and every one of the connections I do. Again, just in case there's ever any moisture intrusion. It's red, sticky, but anyway, it keeps the wires from corroding, keeps the connections from corroding, creating resistance. Once that's done, I'll tape up both wires, and this part will be done. When you tape wires, when you tape electrical connections, you're going to do each wire individually, and you want to make sure you pull that really tight. The tape really tight, and just wrap it. Like I said, just take some practice, really. The tighter you get this, the better it'll seal, less problems you may have down the road later. Don't have to worry about the tape coming off once it's layered on top of each other a couple times. And it should look like that. It shouldn't be a big mess. It should be tight around the wire. And if you want, just to make it look a little neater, you can go over both those connections with another piece of tape, and that'll just neaten it up a little bit. Again, you could heat shrink this if you wanted to. Like I said, we use the battery terminal spray and just regular old electric tape. Once that connection's made it up, you can just drop it back in here for now. Next thing we'll have to do is our speaker connections. One thing I neglected to mention is your remote turn on. Basically what you've got on any amplifier, unless it's got some kind of voltage sensing thing or sound sensitive remote turn on, is a blue wire. This blue wire is responsible for telling the amp to turn on. In this particular setup, we don't have a dedicated switch on the tube anywhere that we would wire a remote wire to. So basically when we click this adapter to on, it will power the remote wire as well as power the power wire. We're just basically doing a jumper here. So what I'm going to do is strip this red wire back, solder this blue one in, and tape that up so that connection is good and solid. Again, they don't usually strip enough of this wire for my taste, so I'll strip some more back. Again, we'll wrap that wire around the big red wire and solder the connection up. I'm the reason why you throw up your cruiser. Chill with your old lady at the tilt. I got a 90-day extension and I feel. Alright, solder's taking real well there. Again, you can check in these solder joints by tugging on it. If that wire moves it off, it rotates around, then you messed up. Again, a little battery terminal spray here to protect it. And then we'll tape it up. The solder joint will be kind of warm. I'm not touching it directly. It would probably burn me if I touched it right now, but alright, now that concludes this part of the hookup. This will hook into the amplifier. This will hook into the amplifier as well. One of them is stereo connection for the audio. The other one is the power only. So once this is plugged in, we click on our power adapter here. Click it to the on position, everything will power up, amp will come on, and it'll start playing, provided we have an audio source attached. Next thing we need to do is wire up some speakers. And what I'm going to do basically is kind of show you what we do to get it ready for that. And then I'll kind of walk through that as well. Alright, I got one of my speakers out here. What we're basically going to do, and we're going to tuck all these wires in here, we won't need them for a few minutes. What I'm basically going to do is take the speaker, line it up here on the tube, and make sure you know that I'm straight, centered, got it turned the right direction, up and down. And I'm going to pre-drill each one of these holes. The Screws Bazooka provides with them. Again, we do a lot of different tubes, a lot of different setups. We sell Bazooka speakers, we sell Infinity speakers, we do wet sounds, we do wet sounds amps, we do a lot of different combinations of these things to fit, pretty much any budget, or, depending on how loud you want to be. If you want to be the loudest kid on the block, you need to go with one of our wet sound setups, because it puts a ton more power to the speakers. And it just really depends on what you want and how much you want to put into one of these things. If you build it right, it should last a long time. Barring you don't get a stick punch to a speaker, you don't roll your four-wheeler over something and destroy something. But again, replacement parts like speakers are available. We could definitely send you one if something like that were to happen. If you buy a tube from us, we basically warn you, if something does happen to a speaker, quit using it, call us, we'll figure out something for you and get you back on the trails with some tunes. Anyway, you want to look. There's some sort of reference if you use Charlotte pipe. That's who ours come from. I can't speak for every single PVC manufacturer there is out there, but there is a definite mark on the top of each one of these, and it's right in the center point. And once you see it, it's be impossible for me to show you in the camera. But anyway, it's basically a mark that's cast into it to show you where the center point is. So basically, we're going to line this up by eye here, and then look down here at the bottom, make sure we're in the same spot. And again, on the sides, there's notches on these fittings that'll show you where each thing is. The screws come with this, just a black screw. I'm using an 1/8 inch bit, which is just smaller than the screw. You pre-drill the holes and make your life so much easier than trying to do this all at one time. And it's going to take me 10 minutes or something to drill all these holes, and then I can put them in with a regular screwdriver. Don't have to worry about breaking one or missing. When you go to do this, you want to angle your drill bit outward towards the outside of the PVC, whichever direction the hole you're doing. And basically that's going to make sure that you get in the PVC ring that we glued in earlier. And that'll give your screw a good solid place to land. You don't have to worry about it breaking out. You don't have to worry about your speaker coming out. It was worth mentioning before I started drilling that you want to visually look in each one of the holes. You can't see it with the camera here, even if I pulled it up here, but you want to make sure that you can see the black ring if you painted it black, then the ring that's in here, you want to make sure that you can see it, because if you can't, then or if you can see light in there inside the tube, then you're going to miss, and you definitely don't want to do that because your screw's not holding anything. Once you get one started, once you get a hole drilled, I'm going to start a screw by hand. Alright, once we've got one of these screws started, I'm going to go and pre-drill the rest of the 4 holes. You want to make sure that your speaker hasn't twisted or rocked when you were drilling the first hole. Once you get 2 in here, it's not a problem. These particular speakers have 4. Some speakers have 5. Just depends on the make. Again, we're going to angle outward away from the speaker, out towards the outside of the PVC. Alright, you see I got each one of my holes here. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're all in the plastic. They're all going to hit good and hold good. Going to repeat the process for all the other 2 speakers. This one, again, 3 speaker tube, so we're going to have 3 different sets of speaker holes. had to reposition my camera a little bit so you can see when I drill these other holes. Again, I'm probably going to fast forward through this anyway. Alright, again, you see my 4 holes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are where our speakers are going to land. They're nice and solid in this ring. No chance of that coming out since we glued it in. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and run some speaker wire. This is 16 gauge. Alright, the next thing we're probably going to talk about here is our amplifier. It's the Clarion amplifier again. This has 4 outputs. It's got 4 front and rears. Since it's a 3-speaker tube, we're using 4-ohm speakers. We're just going to use 3 of the channels. It'll make it real easy. Gives a 4-ohm load. We don't get any creative wiring, and which can be done a lot of times. If you're using a 2-channel amp, if you need some help with it, give us a call. Basically what we've done here is taken the 4 inputs, combine them down to 2, which would be basically what you'll have with a 2-channel amplifier setup. And then we've used another splitter here to give us 2 separate inputs, like again, one for our Bluetooth, one for our 3.5mm jack. I'm going to go ahead and pull some speaker wires now and get the speakers ready to go in. Alright, we've got our wire stripped back. Some of your speaker wires, depending on what you use, is marked. I'm going to use the one with the writing, which happens to be the gold wire, as our positive. Again, I'm going to solder these because I don't want a chance of them coming loose. A spade push-on connector works a lot of times, but again, I don't want it to come off, don't want to call back on it. So any chance we can take it out for possible failure, whether it's vibration or what, we do that. So we're going to run this through and just wrap it around the terminal, and I'm just going to solder that in place. And I'll do that for each one of these speakers. Once you've got all your speakers set up, terminated, however you're going to do it, if you're going to do it with solder, if you're going to do it with crimp connectors, you can go ahead and install the speakers. If you're using this Clarion amp, it's pretty easy to get in through the center hole here. So it's not a big deal. It would just slide down in there. Then you can attach the wood blocks that go on it by hand, and then you don't have to worry about your amp sliding around. You secure it however you want. Again, make sure that you can get your amp inside your tube before you go ahead and install the speakers. Again, I'm going to put this one in, and then I'll just cut to getting caught up so you don't waste so much time watching me do repetitive things. Alright, I got our speakers installed, and you may have noticed earlier I installed this speaker upside down. I went ahead and flipped that back over once I caught my mistake, and started prepping our amp, getting it ready. The only thing I've done here is taken our half moon shapes and basically used the mounting holes, screwed them down into that. That way when it's inside the tube, it'll sit there nice and flat and give us something to secure it with. One other thing, if you're using this amp, there are speaker level inputs as well as RCA level inputs. You can go ahead and cut these speaker level inputs off and tape them up. They're not going to be needed. It's just if you're using, say, a factory head unit or something like that. On this side is our plug where everything plugs in, so we'll take this plug and mate 3 of the channels, which will be our fronts, which our left front, our right front, and either one of the rears. It doesn't really matter. It's going to be our center channel. The other one we'll cut off and tape up. So I'm going to make these wires up, and basically going to strip these back. I'm going to solder the appropriate wires to it, tape it up. Before I tape it, I'll use some of this battery terminal protectant on it to protect it, and then we'll go from there. Alright, I've got everything made up. This is my plug that goes into my amp. Here's the speaker wires made up. Like I said, I just put a piece of tape around all of them. They're all taped individually. And then one piece of tape to, make it neat. And amplifier here, I've taken 2 of the mounting screws out. One on this side and one on this side. This is so we can get this amp down in there with our standoffs on it. And I'm basically just going to fold these over. I can do this one-handed, like so. And like so. And what that'll do is allow me to slide it down inside here. And it's going to be hard to do with one hand and get it all in there, but I may have to set the camera down. Basically, we're going to get in here like this. And we've got all our connections. We can pull them all out here and plug everything in. And I'm going to just rotate this 90 degrees. And there's some of these wires that you'll need. Again, with the Bluetooth adapter and things like that, you'll need to fish all that out from underneath the amp. There we go. Here's our Bluetooth adapter. There's our other set of RCAs. Once you got that, you should be able to rotate this back into place. And I have to do the same thing for the other side. Again, I know this is kind of a pain and hard to see. There's our power connector. And once you get those stood up, you should be able to rotate the amp pretty much in any orientation you want, and it'll sit there nice and solid. Alright, now you can see the amps down in here, as well as all the connectors, and it's ready to go. And what I'm basically going to do is put some expanding foam down in here. I'm going to squirt it on each side of this, build kind of a dam, and the foam will adhere to the pipe as well as to the board there, and keep our amp from flopping around. And while we're at that, I'm going to put the camera back in its stand over here so you can kind of see what I'm doing as I hook this all up. Alright, first thing we're going to do is get our speakers and our power connectors in. Just down here where the amp is. And they're just inside there. Plug the speaker connector in. Make sure it clicks in. And I'm sorry about that, but here is this. Got that plugged in here. Next thing we'll need is our power connector, which is here. Alright, once those two are in, we can lay this stuff back down in here. One other thing before you use foam or however it is you're going to seal your amp in, there are some adjustments on this amplifier, and those adjustments are right down there on the end. I should have pointed these out earlier, but again, every amp's going to be different. These are slide connectors, and they'll be for setting your gain and crossovers. I think the rest of this I can do with it back up here. Alright, here is our connector for our Bluetooth. I'm going to put one of the black ones on one side, the red one, and then on the other side, look up the red one. Then I'll take my RCA jacks for my 3.5mm clarion input, plug that into the black one, this one over here into the red one. What we've basically done is put one channel, or left and right, on each of these inputs. So it's still stereo, everything's still good with that. And I didn't mention this earlier, but whenever you do RCAs, I recommend taping them up, just again to prevent the chance of them vibrating apart, because if this thing's going on a four-wheeler, it's going to be subject to a lot of vibration, a lot of bouncing. So anything you can do to prevent, something coming unplugged, you should definitely do that. Alright, once all those are made up, again, cram everything into the hole here. And the next thing you should do is seal that connector up, as well as the connector here and the grommet. Easiest way to do that, take a glob of silicone, put it on your finger, run it all the way around. You smear it all over that, just to prevent any kind of, if there is some sort of leak there, to prevent that from becoming a problem later. We do that on the inside where we can't see it, so the tube looks nice and neat. And like I said, the easiest way, put it on your finger, reach back in here. You should be able to reach all the way around that connector and smear it on. Your amp's still loose, so you can slide it to left or the right to make it easier to get your hand in there. You could have done this at an earlier time, but I try not to do that until I don't have to reach my hand back in there, because I don't want to get the crap all over me. Alright, once you got your amp installed, you got everything sealed up, minus the speakers, you really need to test this thing. Make sure, A, that it powers up, B, that it comes on, and C, how much you need to adjust the amp. Adjust the amp's really kind of beyond the scope of this video. You're going to have to kind of do it by ear. If you're doing it, it'll depend a lot on the amp you use, the speakers you use, the kind of music you listen to, and how much power you got available, really. And it also depends on, the amp will make just a little more power with the motor running. So I advise you to start with the amp, set your gains about 3/4 of the way, 75%, and turn it on and start adjusting your volume up on your music source. Run it up, and if you start running a distortion, back the gains down a little bit, adjust the crossover, try and get that distortion out. You want to be able to play this thing pretty much with your music source wide open and not have to worry about distortion. So, if you get out on the trail, you're out having fun, you turn it up loud, you're really cranking this thing, that you don't hurt your speakers or your amplifier. So, if you got any questions about a specific application, feel free to give us a call, shoot us an email, and we'll be glad to help you out whichever way we can. So, what I'm going to do now is tune this one up, and once I'm done with that, go ahead and screw the speaker all the way in. Again, I've only got 2 speakers in here right now because I'm going to test and tune it and see how it sounds and make some adjustments on the amp. I'll take the speaker out a couple times just to adjust the amp. So bear with me just a few minutes. Once I get that done, I'll walk you through in and sealing this thing up for the final, and it'll be ready to go. Alright, now I'm going to walk you through setting up Bluetooth. If you got one of the Bluetooth adapters, basically what you do is set your phone to Bluetooth mode, turn it on, and you'll see there that it's scanning for devices. Switch your tube on, and just give that a minute. It'll pop up, ask for the pin. The pin for these particular devices is 4 zeros. Once you pair it, it'll go connected. Alright, once you pair it up, you just hit play on your music player. Music will start playing. And again, you should set this thing up when you tune your amp so you can pretty much run it wide open without any distortion. When you're using the Bluetooth, you can control your music while you're riding, through your phone, through your music player, whatever it is, whatever's Bluetooth enabled, and you can run volume up, down, change tracks, things like that. And make sure you want to check it with a bunch of different music, just so you've got it tuned well, you don't get any distortion, different songs, different types of music. Again, if you're using the 3.5mm jack, you would just plug that in here, open this up, plug it into your headphone jack on the top, use a patch cable to go into the input, get the same kind of setup, same kind of control. When you turn your power switch off, everything cuts off, it's not draining on your battery, you're good to go. The last thing we've got to do is seal each one of these speakers up, and basically what we're going to do is run a bead of adhesive. Use RTV silicone basically. Use the black. You can get it at. You can pick this stuff up at auto parts stores. I use the big tubes because like we do quite a few of these things. So otherwise it comes in a small tube, which is more than adequate to do one of these tubes. Basically, you run a bead all the way around each speaker and in each screw hole, and that'll keep any kind of water from intruding inside the tube. If you ever have to take one out, you want to make sure you reseal it, just for the same reason, keep water out, moisture out, things like that. Basically, once you seal your tube up, you're good to go from there. Once it cures, you can go ahead and install it on your ATV. A lot of people will use straps. Some people use U-bolts. We personally, if we build one here in the shop for a customer's bike, we use U-bolts through the tube, and again, we'll seal those up, but that's a completely different tutorial. And once you get that done, you're good to go as far as using the tube from then on. And if you guys got any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, give me a call. We do can sell you a kit as far as components, so speakers, the 3.5mm jacks, the grommets, the amplifiers. We can do all that, as well as PVC. If you wanted it pre-done, holes drilled in it, so all you need to do is glue it together. We can definitely work on that with you. But website's whoolie.com. That's WHOOLIE, and we look forward to hearing from you.